when you buy, just think of what's going on. You're on Amazon, you put it in your cart, it feels fun. You get a little dopamine hit when you buy it. Then you get a dopamine hit when it shows up at your door. You're paying with a credit card. There's no exchange of cash. So you have no sense of, I'm spending this money.
Hi, everyone. This is Katana Abbott, and I want to welcome you to Smart Women Talk. It's our first show of the year. We have just finished the holidays, and you may be looking around your house and feeling like you have a lot more stuff, and you're wondering what to do with it. But don't worry, because we have a solution for you. When you let go of clutter, and you make space for what really matters in your life, you will see dramatic improvements in your energy and your happiness. So today I'm excited. We're going to be speaking with decluttering professional and best-selling author Tracy McCubbin about making space for what truly matters in your life. Welcome, Tracy.
Hi, Happy New Year. It's such a great way to kick off the new year.
Absolutely. I am so excited. This is your third time back to the show.
I'm a three-peat. I'm a hat trick.
Yes, absolutely. And you are so well known in the media. It's amazing. I just have to rave about your YouTube. Your tips are so great and they're so short. Every single day you can go grab one.
Yeah, it's for me one of the great upsides of social media, YouTube and Instagram, is that I have so much knowledge. I've been doing this for 18 years with clients in their homes. And my Instagram is such a great way to just get these little tricks out and little tips and things little changes that people can make. Because as we all know, little changes add up to big changes.
You've got two books. You've got the newest one is Make Space for Happiness,
Yes.
Right? And
Yep.
Your other book is
Making Space Clutter Free. So the way I tell people, the first book is really about the emotional reasons why we can't let go of the things that we don't want, need, or use anymore. Really diving into our attachment to our stuff, why it's so difficult to let go. It has a whole house plan, really comprehensive. The second book is about why we overshop. I realized that we can't be talking about decluttering if we're not talking about our consumption. So it's really a deep dive into what's going on with us emotionally, why we're trying to fill what we think is an empty hole inside of us with stuff. So you can start with either one, but they really are companions to each other.
Right. I got your book out again, and I remember now that you wrote that book when COVID was going on, I believe, or right afterwards. And you started out with the vehicles going, delivering, and everyone buying.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it for a while. And then when COVID hit, I just I joked and called it the Leaning Tower of Packages. You just drive down the street and you just see people shopping. And it really came home for me when a longtime client called me up and she said, "Hey, so you remember all that stuff we decluttered? Well, I bought it all again and then some." And people were stressed out. And I knew it was more than just boredom. I wanted to look at what was compelling people to shop. Was it fear that we weren't going to have access? Was it don't have control over the world, so if I buy a new spiralizer or a blender, I'll be okay? Really looking at the correlation between what was going on and why we started shopping like drunken sailors.
They have a film out that came out in the fall called Buy Now, and it really focused on Amazon. Tracy, did you watch that?
I've watched bits of it. It's a tough watch. It's good, but we're really in a time of overconsumption.
But the problem is that they showed is that a lot of this stuff gets sent to landfills. Even when you buy from Amazon, 30% is going back to the landfill. More higher than that, or
higher. Yeah, the percentage is something like 50% of all returns just end up in the trash.
It's horrid. And we thought we were doing a good thing by sending things over to Africa. That is not working. On the film, they showed the clothes washing up on the shore.
Also, if you think about that, right? Like the clothes are made overseas, usually in Asia, shipped over here on a container ship. So there's all that pollution going on, goes in the stores here. Then they go to the thrift store, they go to Goodwill, they don't get bought, they get put back on a ship. It's just the whole cycle. And I always say this to people. Look, I appreciate buying secondhand. I try my hardest to buy already used, but over shopping at the thrift store is still over shopping, right? And we're still overbuying. And I also think we've fallen into what you pointed out that I like to call the donation myth. This idea that, oh, I buy it and if I don't want it, I'll donate it, right? Like you're kidding yourself, right? Because why are you buying something that you already have an out to get rid of it? We should be buying things that we plan on keeping and using for a long time. This idea that everything is disposable. A client of mine said once that her grandma had this saying when she would say, when you throw something away, where's away? Where does it go?
And I have so many things from my grandmother and my great aunt. It's so different because when she passed, she stayed in the same apartment her whole life. She had a Murphy bed. Uncle Leo had his own room, but she still had her Moffett stove when she passed and the old fashioned sink. And she never bought new stuff, really. She just kept using what she had and took really good care of it. And
I
I,
think yeah, I think about this. My granny had, I can remember it because the font was in cursive, but my grandmother had an IBM typewriter my whole life, and she was a secretary, right? She used it for work, and I think I've had 15 computers. She had one typewriter, and when it broke, she got it fixed, and it worked. And I'm just like, oh, new computer.
and we talked about that on our old show, is in the old days, in the 70s, I remember where I lived, we in the corner, the five and dime, we had the jean store, we had the repair shop for small appliances, and actually a Kirby vacuum cleaner repair.
Yeah.
All that stuff. And you said it's because they started manufacturing overseas and the prices dropped, and so everyone just started buying. What do you see as a solution for this buying problem that we have? I'm older than you, and so I'm really aware of what's going on. But what have you seen now with the young people? Because they're really stepping up. Are they noticing this as a problem, or they just
Oh, yeah. Oh,
really?
yeah. I will say the young people, my niece, other people in my life really are trying to buy secondhand, being really thoughtful about their purchases, really understanding. There's something I tell people to do, a change that you can make today that's one of the most powerful things, but it's just a language change. It's the idea of instead of saying, I need a new pair of jeans, I need a new blender, because you don't. You have it, it all works. Just start saying, I want. Go like when you start to say, oh, I want a new pair of jeans or I want a new blender, somehow it loses the grip it has on you because you're like, oh, this is just a desire. And maybe I'm tired today, or maybe I had a hard day at work, or when you pass through what you're doing emotionally, it loses its grip on you. Oh, I just wanted that for a second. Now it's forgotten about. So it's really an interesting exercise for people to just stop saying I need, because you don't. You need food, you need shelter, you need water, but I can guarantee everybody out there has everything they really need in their life right now.
And another problem is that this whole thing about buy, and how it's set up instant gratification. You can get it the same day now. It's horrible. What
Yep.
about these credit cards? Because 2 million people have debt over 50,000 on credit card alone, and more debt than savings. That's really scary.
And I think what happens, I think it's really an exercise in when you buy, Just think of what's going on. You're on Amazon, you put it in your cart, it feels fun. You get a little dopamine hit when you buy it, then you get a dopamine hit when it shows up at your door. You're paying with a credit card. There's no exchange of cash. So you have no sense of I'm spending this money. And I think that Venmo and it's all monopoly money and we're being marketed to 24 hours a day. What I'm really starting to see with my clients is that, especially my clients in 40s, 50s, 60s whose parents are starting to pass, that all of a sudden they're left dealing with cleaning out their parents' house and they're like, there's so much stuff and they just spent their whole lives buying, and then you pass and you have to get rid of it. So I think that really people are looking like, I don't want to leave a mess. I think people are really rethinking it. I really do. I'm starting to see a trend, and I appreciate it because this overconsumption, you've got to have the next best thing. You don't.
So tell me, what happens when you are called in a situation like that? Are you called in when someone passes?
Yeah, that's about a third of our business, my
Okay.
company's business. We help clean out houses. I'll tell you the first thing that happens. I meet with the family, and they tell me that they want to sell everything. We really want to have a estate sale. We want the auction house to come. And we walk through, and I say, no one's going to buy this. And they're like, what? They're like, my mom spent $2,000 on this breakfast room table. And I'm like, what year? In the late 70s, early 80s. Yeah, no one's going to buy it. Furniture tastes have changed. No one wants that old pine furniture. And that's the first thing that people are like, oh, or they do an estate sale and they make a couple $1,000s. We're sort of seeing this interesting thing where the boomers now they bought quality stuff, but they also bought a lot of Hummels and Lalique and Yadro, right? Because this idea of if you could afford to buy decor, it showed your status. So they're like, my mom spent her whole life collecting it. It's got to be worth something. It's not. So that's the first thing that I have to deliver is it's it's very rare that anything you have is going to fetch any sum of money. Then the process, we go through it, we figure out what to donate, what to sell, what to give to family members. And I'm just starting to see more and more Gen Xers go through this with their parents that they're like, I don't want to do this to anybody else. I want to simplify. I just don't need that much anymore. I don't want to leave this mess for my kids. So, in a way, it's having a really good effect, but it's been brutal for people. I always feel terrible. I'm really the bearer of bad news.
So what happens to the stuff? It sounds like the kids don't want it or they don't need it.
They don't need it. A lot of it they don't want, and we tried the best to donate it as much as we can. I work really hard. It's part of my business model. I was actually the first one in the organizing business 20 years ago when I started. We really work with small nonprofits. We get it to people. I always tell people start with your community, start with young couples on your street. If you have a housekeeper, do you have a gardener? Do you have a nanny? Do you have a babysitter? Start with your own community because the great thing about your own community is that it's going to get used. So
Right.
we really, and I'm helping people understand that furniture, furnishings, it's a diminishing asset. You're not going to make your money back. I always use this example of the breakfast room table. My mom spent $2,500 in it in 1980. Then that means that you sat at it for 50 some years. So if you amortize what she paid over it, you got a pretty good deal on it, right? So
Right.
you
Right.
buy furniture because you use it and you love it. You don't buy it because you're going to make money on the other end.
And I think another great way is just put it in Facebook Marketplace for free.
I love Facebook Marketplace.
Yep.
Love, love. I also love there's more and more buy nothing groups. Those are my
Oh,
favorite.
yeah, I want to write that one down.
Yeah, they're usually Facebook groups and they're local by neighborhood, and you just list things. And this is a perfect example. We had a set of dishes that my husband's daughter had used in her college apartment. She moved back home and nice. They were, I forget where they were from, Crate and Barrel or something. It was like a full set, only been used for a year. So my husband put them on Facebook Marketplace and he was going to sell them for $20. So they're up there, gets a call. This woman comes to look at them. Lovely. And just my husband's very chatty and was finding out her story, putting herself through nursing school, a single mom, like working really hard. And he just was like, please just take them. We don't need your $20. You need it. Please do not pay me for it. And he felt, everybody left that interaction feeling so great. Here was my husband who was like helping a stranger. Here was this young woman who's really trying to find a career. It made a difference. She was like, we've been eating off of paper plates. It was such a lovely interaction for everybody. So I think that, especially if you're someone who has a hard time letting go, if you know that stuff is going to someone who's going to need it, it just opens it up. And it's just a way for us to be of service. It's an act of kindness,
Yes.
right? And also, if you have something in your house that you're not using and there's someone out there that can, why wouldn't you? I've seen so many stories where somebody really needed something and one of my clients let it go and it just ended up where it was supposed to end up. And it's great. I had a client who had to fly back to, her mom had to go into senior living like quick, like memory care right away. So she flew home to Philadelphia. She's in California, young kids, raising her kids, working, had to go back, take care of mom, house full of furniture. And she called me up and she said, I don't want to put it in the trash. It will break my heart, but I also don't have the time to sell it. And I don't even know if anybody will buy it. Like, I'm stumped. And I said, look, this is your hometown. Do you have a lot of relatives? And she's like, I do. We actually have a family Facebook group. I said, just throw them up there. Maybe somebody in the family will want it. She put everything up on there. A second cousin, once removed, called and said, oh my gosh, my daughter just got married. They're in grad school. They have nothing. The next day, the cousin's daughter and her husband and two of their strong friends showed up and took almost all of it. And my client was so happy. She was like, I'm helping someone. This is this really hard time in my life where it's going on with my mom. And it was just such an amazing experience. And so I tell people, when you're going to let go, can you make it an act of service? Can you understand that you're really helping somebody?
Yeah.
And it always changes people's idea about it.
I got goosebumps when you're telling that story because in addition, it was going to a family member. And so I'm sure that they're going to be so excited to get things from whatever their great aunt or whatever.
I will say this is sometimes an unpopular opinion, but I stand by it. I also am a real fan of giving away things while you're still alive. I had a dear client of mine who lived to be 94 and loved her. And she had all this big, fancy 80s diamonds jewelry. And as she was aging, she was like, I don't wear this anymore. Her hands weren't the same. She started giving it away to nieces and granddaughters. And she said, nothing makes me happier than to show up to lunch and my granddaughter's wearing this necklace that her grandfather gave me. Like it just was sitting in a safe. If there's things like that in your life to someone who's listening, who you're just not using anymore, wearing anymore, give it to someone who can enjoy it. And then you can see them enjoying it. It's such a win.
Oh, yeah. And there's a woman called the Death Doula. Have you heard of her?
Yes. Oh, yes.
It's this whole thing about before you pass to be able to release things. And I don't know if I told you this. I went to an estate sale with my daughter once, and the kids must have been out of state, and it must not have been done professionally because things were not cleared out, like dresser drawers, and there was lingerie, and the bathroom had personal items in it. But I just felt so sorry. for that person. And that made me think that before I'm gone, I want to make sure that it's a beautiful transition for people. We don't know how to time it, but we can certainly start now. And at my age right now, I'm looking maybe 20, 25, 30 years. Who knows? I'd love 30 years. But to start, like you said, giving things away and simplifying. And I'm a hoarder. So, not a bad hoarder. I'm a very neat hoarder. Like, I used to have a junk drawer, and you probably run into this. And then when my daughter moved out, I had her dresser in there. This antique dresser became a junk dresser.
Uh-huh.
But I open it, it's like my daughter's made things that are in there, and there's just all kinds of little treasures. What is that, the purpose of that? So I really do need to clear
You
that
know
out.
what the purpose is? The purpose is you want to keep the memories, right? You want to, your daughter's older now, grown. We don't really want the stuff. We want the connection and the memory. So can you keep a few things? Can you take photos so that you have it and you can look at it? And I think that's the thing that people understand is you don't really want your daughter's first report on George Washington, but you want to be able to look at it and remember when she was that age. And people when they start to understand that they want to keep the connection to that time in their life, that also makes it a little easier.
Yeah, so it's this emotional attachment that we have to the memory and how, all of those experiences are stored in our body. So it's probably a somatic thing, right?
Yeah.
And that we cry when we think of releasing some things. What do you suggest to people that are having these emotional attachments to things?
My first suggestion is to read my first book, Making Space Clutter Free, because
Perfect.
we attack 7 of those big emotions. I think it's really understanding, is there a way that you can keep that memory and not keep the thing? Can you take a photograph of it? I say this all the time to clients when we're dealing with someone who's passed away, is this idea that the amount of stuff you keep from someone who's passed away in no way correlates to how much you love them. My grandmother was like my dearest person in my life. She's been gone 22 years. I still think of her every day. I have like 3 things of hers. I don't have a lot. I have her wedding ring that I wear. I I have a little thing on my desk, like a tiny little thing that's got a grocery list with her little handwriting. And I look at it every day, and it's just really, it's just a few things, and I treasure them, and I'm not overloaded, and she's still in my heart. So I think it's understanding that you don't have to keep everything. I think it's understanding that a few treasured items. Sometimes what happens is if you keep so much from people who have passed, you actually get resentful.
Yeah,
If
because you don't know what to do with it.
and or are you paying for a storage unit to hold on to it? And is it clogging up we clean out garages for people all the time, and they're like, their whole garage is full of stuff, and they're like, I don't even like this furniture and I can't park my car. So if you're keeping a lot of things and it's leading to resentment.
Or it could be causing problems in your relationships.
Oh, I am half marriage counselor.
So I told my husband, Mark, that I was interviewing you. He's going, oh, good. I hope you take her advice because I told you he's the one that throws everything out. The kids literally freak out because of stuff that they made. They bring over something and stick it in the garage thinking it's safe. They don't have a garage. And then it's gone. That piece of junk, he'll say. But but Tracy, what about someone who has that where they just throw everything out? He told me I cleaned out your junk drawer for you in the dresser. How does someone think they can even do something like that?
Yeah, I'm a really big fan of clear and open communication. I'm really marriage and partnerships, it's a community. So you really have to. I'm not a fan of going behind somebody's back and throwing things away. I don't think that it works. In my own life, I married a man who's so lovely, but he's messy. He's clean. Our house is immaculate, but he's messy. And I realized early on, like he has his office and he does what he wants in there, and I don't go in there, and there we are.
That's great. So yeah, just respecting each other's boundaries and that.
And here's the thing, if you're a uncluttered person and you're with a cluttered person, sometimes the way to think about it is if somebody is very cluttered, they've probably been hearing about it their whole lives, right? You're messy, you're this, you're lazy, you don't clean up. And that's really oversimplified. But explaining to them, look, when our kitchen isn't cluttered, when dishes are washed and put away and the countertops are clean, I want to cook and I want to cook healthy food and we're not going out to eat and we're not spending all this money. Sometimes when you can help explain what an uncluttered space does for you, it helps the other person understand as opposed to nagging at them. You're so messy and why can't you do this? This helps me, right? This is, and so I'm just a big fan of communication
So
always.
have you seen where someone is super messy and they get the help that they need? Because, a lot of times it's an emotional thing. They don't know where to start, for
Yeah,
one
they
thing.
don't know where to start. They're overwhelmed. They never learned it, right? If it's not a natural habit to you, it's just, I didn't ever learn how to budget. I didn't learn about finances. I had to teach myself that. Doesn't mean I'm not smart. It's just, I wasn't really raised. That wasn't an important lesson. And so as I was older and had to dig myself out of terrible credit card debt in my 20s, I was like, oh, I haven't learned this. So let's learn it. Let's read up on finances. Let's read up on personal finances. If it's not a skill that's natural to you, learn it. It's
Have,
okay.
have you seen success stories? Because you told about the one
Oh,
that bought
yeah.
everything. But have you
Yeah.
seen where, let's say, they get organized and then they feel this sense of what your book's about, happiness and joy and energy,
I had a
and their
client.
life shifts, and then they don't, and then they're like, they can
Oh,
stay
all the time, all
organized?
the time. I had a client recently who we had worked with for a year, really a lot, and combination of some depression and a divorce and different things. And they weren't comfortable having guests in their house, just weren't comfortable. So we were there, my team was there, got rid of storage units, like just such deep, amazing work. And the kind of at the end days, like they were doing my team was doing the last bit of projects. I was in the neighborhood and I was like, oh, let me swing by. And she was like, come in, have a cup of coffee. We like sat in her beautiful living room and ate cookies and drank coffee. And for her, she was like, this is what I wanted. It wasn't about necessarily the stuff. It's, I wanted to create a home where I could have friends drop by. That was a goal for her. And it like changed her life. And then her son, he was living at home while he's going to college. He started having friends over. She's like, he's never had friends over our whole life. Like all of a sudden, their life became so much bigger and so much more connected because they were comfortable having people in their home. And that's amazing.
And see, that is what this is all about.
Yep.
It's making space for more happiness in our lives.
Exactly. And I say this till I'm blue in the face. It is not about being perfect. First of all, there's no perfection, right? It's not about being perfect. It's not about looking great on Instagram or Pinterest. It's about making your home work for you, right?
Mhm.
That's the goal. So that's what I'm after.
That's fantastic. Okay, so tell everyone how they can connect with you.
Fantastic. So you can find me. My website is dClutterfly, DCLUTERFLY.com. You can also Instagram and YouTube are big spaces for me. So at Tracy McCubbin on both of those. And
And
then
no
also
E, no
no
E,
E.
Tracy.
Tracy, like Dick Tracy. If you're old like that, you know that character. And then you're going to get a link. We're going to put a link. We have an amazing checklist of 25 things that you can declutter right now. That's available on my website. So if you go to declutterfly.com/things to declutter in under 5 minutes, and I know you'll drop it in the show notes for people,
Yes,
but it's a great checklist of right away. And it's a great way to kick off the new year. 25 things you can declutter.
that is
Bang.
fantastic. Yes, and I can't wait to download that myself because I get excited about this, especially it's the first of the year. And so the more we can free up this space, the more the universe will fill us with, the
Nature
things we
abhors a
want.
vacuum. It will fill
Yes,
it with something.
with
So what,
positive things.
yeah, what do you want to fill it with? You should print it out and take it to your husband and say, look, I'm gonna declutter 25 things.
I will. He'll love it.
Happy early birthday.
But you know what? You said it before, he'll be following me around with the checklist. That's okay. Hey, Tracy, again, thank you so much for coming and sharing your wisdom with us. I think your book's going to be a fabulous gift for everyone. And I hope people go buy it because I know I love my copy. I've got it on Kindle and I gave my paper copy away.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much and wishing you and everyone a happy new year.
Thank you so much. All righty. We'll see you. Okay, everyone. I hope you come and join our community. Go to joinsmartwomen.com. We have all kinds of exciting things planned for you in the future coming right up. And for those who are watching the YouTube or the podcast, please subscribe and like the station. And until our next show, go out and live with more purpose, passion, and prosperity.